Almost every person in my family is a victim of child abuse and specifically sexual abuse, myself included. And while that's hard to hear and hard to talk about, I think it's a very important element of the context of this video that I made and the information that was put out afterward. This idea that I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, or that I don't have the credentials to speak on this subject. Very familiar with child abuse, very familiar with what we do to victims, both when they are victims of sexual abuse and assault, and very familiar with why women, and particularly children, often do not come forward. Specifically, people who fall in the adolescence/teenage age range, which is what we're talking about when we talk about people like Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
Alrighty, welcome in Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, today's been a good day. Like Ice Cube once said, I didn't even have to use my AK.
Nice. I like that. Did you have your name on the blimp? Did it say David's a pimp? Yeah,
It may have.
I like it. Yeah, it's you're right, man. This has been the best day in a while. It's finally getting back to a comfortable temperature for me. It's the last few days have been a little chilly. I didn't enjoy them at all. Don't care for those 80-degree days, especially the 70-degree day that we had in there. Did not like that at all in August, and I think I've been trying to negotiate a deal where we get some hundreds over into the end of October to make up for this.
My goodness, no.
And some 90s into November just to make up for this nonsense that's taking place here. Listen, we're back up into 90s right now, and I think we're doing okay.
Is it that hot today?
It's 80. It's 87 now here. So
was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's and we're unnaturally for us doing this late in the afternoon. So we're if the lighting looks a little different, it's we rely on natural light here because we're into the environment. And it's late in the evening instead of early in the morning, which is when, and I say early-ish in the morning. We normally do it.
Mid-morning, mid-morning.
We had some things, need to shuffle some stuff around. We made it happen. So one of us had a root canal this week.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm fantastic. That root canal, best root canal I've ever had. I know it's another weird thing to say, like with the 90s and 100-degree stuff, but I have spent the last week in so much pain. I cannot express to you how bad my damn tooth hurt on Saturday and Sunday. It was, oh my God. I had a crown put on a back molar a few months back, and the only thing I can figure is there must have been an infection that got into that thing somehow or another. And of course it happened. The pain started on the day prior to us leaving the beach. So we're going to drive back. And so there's, if it had started a day earlier, I could have gone to the doctor down there. I could have gone to the dentist and hit him up. But it started at the time that it started. It just fell this way, and so by the time I got back, my dentist was out for the day. The next day, then it was the weekend, and so mercy. Oh man,
yeah, it's rough. But tooth pain is hard.
Got that root canal done, man, and it is 100% better. So we're all right. And look, before we get rolling on this little podcast episode, I need to tell you about our good friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment who helped make this thing go. We have enjoyed working with them and all the good things that they're doing for the state. And we have finally, I did not realize this, we have finally started getting from them some of their PR stuff. We had not been getting this from. I'm talking about over at APR when I say over at APR. We had not been receiving it for whatever reason. There's some really good stories that they had done. I saw they had a thing about giving 10 grand. Porch Creeks gave 10 grand to help start a school project at one of the local schools, one of the public schools down in South Alabama. I mean, just a whole belly of things that go on with them. And it helps what I was trying to tell them, that a lot of people don't realize their reach throughout the state, what all they do, the businesses that they're involved with, the way that those impact the jobs that come into the state, the taxes that they pay. That's a big thing. You often hear that they don't pay any taxes. They pay a ton of taxes actually in this state, and employ a ton of people. Matter of fact, they're the state's number one hospitality employer, and I believe number 3 employer overall.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's and if you look at it and compare it to other similar jobs in other states, you will find that the employees are much better compensated. They do a really good job of taking care of everybody and making sure they have the benefits and stuff. And you look at them on the reservation and see what they've been able to do around there, and that's not a surprise either.
It's easy to believe that that their folks are well compensated for the work they do, because, as you know, I have walked through the Wetumpka casino with Kay Williams down there. I'm sorry, I keep saying Kay Williams, Kay Simmons down there. And I would tell you, man, the level of camaraderie that I've seen, and I don't think it's manufactured, because I just kept seeing it over and over again, where Kay knew people's names and they were speaking to her sometimes first, and she had chit-chat with them, and it was just a wonderful camaraderie.
Yeah.
So I think they are well taken care of employees, and kudos to Wind Creek Wetumpka for that. One other thing I want to say, too, about Wind Creek Wetumpka that I'm personally grateful for, as I've shared, I'm on the board of the Alabama State Black Chamber of Commerce. And, of course, our mission is to support Black entrepreneurs and to help to grow Black businesses in the state. And the Wind Creek Wetumpka was very generous in giving the chamber $20,000. Now, this is something that they do for organizations. We're not the sole beneficiaries of this. Is not a unique situation. They do this on a routine basis. I want to say it's monthly, I think. Or if it's not monthly, some regular basis. They will single out nonprofits and other worthwhile organizations, and they will take money that has been collected over the course of whether it's a month or whatever the designated period of time is, and they will gift that, just gift it right out to organizations. And so our State Black Chamber has been the most recent recipient of this, and I want to thank Kay Simmons and her team down there at Wetumpka, Wind Creek Wetumpka, for doing that, and just Wind Creek Hospitality and the Porch Creek Nation for their support of organizations.
Stephanie Bryan, the Arthur Mothershed, the whole group of folks. So, everybody that puts in on these things, and they do a good job, and we really do appreciate them. Like we've said many times, we approached them about doing being a sponsor on the podcast. They said, listen, we've heard it. We like what you do. We like that you give the voices to people that aren't often heard around here. Here, we want to keep this up. We want to make sure that everybody gets a voice and that everybody gets heard. And we really, really appreciate them for doing that. And check them out. Look, check them out. Go Wind Creek Entertainment. Google it up. Book yourself a stay. Look, I'm telling you, you look this up and you look at those places, you'll think, my God, I had no idea. If you've never been, you'll have no idea how awesome these places are. Go and have yourself a stay. Even if you're not a big gambler, you don't have to be a big gambler. David's not a big gambler. I'm not a big gambler. I had a fantastic time staying at the facility down in Atmore, the resort facility, the resort in Atmore. We went out to a fantastic dinner at Fire, just kind of hung around. They've got a bowling alley. They've got a movie theater. They've got a whole big kids arcade over there. Of course they have the games and stuff as well, and they would love for you to play. But it was such a nice experience, and that's not to mention the spas and stuff that I didn't even take part in. So go book yourself a stay. You won't regret it, especially if you're heading down to the beach. I know we'll have fall break coming up here in a couple of months. That'll be big. You're heading back and forth for the weekends and things like that. Break it up and stay down there. You're going to football games, book a stay in Wetumpka instead of in Montgomery. Do that. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the body of this thing here. And this was really, I think David and I, before we start talking about, kind of what we're going to talk about, and we were going to talk about some other stuff, but then we got onto this topic and we just kept going. And so finally, why don't we just stop and talk about this? And so, that's what's taking place today. Today is Wednesday afternoon. We're late Wednesday afternoon. This is the Jabari Peoples case. And if you're unaware, Jabari Peoples is a young man, so just finished his freshman year at Alabama A&M. He's from the Birmingham area. He was back at home in Birmingham. It was Homewood. He was in Homewood. He was in Homewood because he was a Homewood police officer. He was sitting outside of park facility there in a parked car with a female friend. And an officer approached them because he said there had been reports of vandalism and other activity in the area. And apparently, I'm just telling you what's been said in news reports around, this has been verified by previous police reports that they've looked at, and that there had been some calls to that area, some things that had taken place in recent times. So the officer has stopped, asked him what was going on. When they rolled the windows down, he smelled marijuana, which is, I know now whenever I hear that, I automatically think, bullshit, that's bullshit, But according to, now this has just come out today because of the DA down in Birmingham for Jefferson County, Danny Carr, who is, I think, a lot of people would agree is a pretty stand-up kind of guy. I mean, a fairly trustworthy DA that I think a lot of people on both sides of the aisle. I compared him when I was talking to David earlier to Darrell Bailey down in Montgomery. I think a lot of people kind of trust what he says, and they trust that he's not going to bullshit them. If the cop was responsible, they trusted that he was going to hold him accountable. If not, then he was going to say so. And he has ruled that this was a justified shooting, and that he's not going to take it to a grand jury, and he's not going to prosecute the police officer or attempt to. And he said that when the officer approached the car, from his viewing of the footage, the body cam footage, when the officer approached the car, he asked them to roll down the windows. Did, smelled marijuana, asked them if they had marijuana, and the female person in the car said yes, and then handed him a jar filled with marijuana of some sort. And so then he asked them to get out of the car. He went around to Mr. Peoples, and there was an exchange of some sorts that went back to normal type stuff. He started to put the handcuffs on Jabari Peoples, again, according to DA Danny Carr, and then a scuffle ensued. I think the way he put it was Mr. Peoples began to resist having the handcuffs put on him. They got tangled together, he said, and fell on the ground. Peoples landed on top of the officer, got up, and prior to all this taking place, when he opened the door, the door to the driver's side where Peoples was, the officer said he had seen a firearm in that door where Peoples was sitting. Peoples got up, went to the open car door, pulled the gun out, and had the gun in his hand when the officer fired apparently one time a shot and killed Jabari Peoples. And that's the reason why he has called this a justified shooting. Now, again, I've not seen it. I understand that while we were working on the show, Ben Crump was a nationally known attorney who's representing the Peoples family in this matter, has said this is not an open and shut case. The family has said that this has raised a lot of questions for them, more questions than answers, they said, came out of it. And I understand that. I think for a lot of people, it's going to be very hard to generate, I don't want to say sympathy, but it's going to be very hard to generate outrage and maintain outrage if Jabari Peoples went over and got the gun out of the.
Well, and that you already know my position, and because I don't want my pastor calling me into his office to fuss at me, I'm not going to use some of the language I used before we started rolling tape here, because I get pretty angry about these police shootings. But right. I got to tell you, I think the pivotal word that you used was if. And the reason I say that's the pivotal word is because for whatever reason, they have not released the videotape. Mm-hmm. So my position is, unless they release the videotape, as long as I know that that it's uniformly conceded that Jabari Peoples was shot in the back, as long as I know that both sides are contending that is indeed factual, until they release the videotape, I don't believe anything that any DA or police officer is saying.
Yeah.
They need to release the videotape and let us see what they're contending the events were. Let us see it. And if they're not going to release the videotape and they're deciding not to pursue charges, my question is why? If the investigation is over, what's the reason for not releasing the videotape? Because their logic has been that releasing the tape while the investigation was ongoing would compromise the investigation. Well, now the investigation is over, apparently. So release the videotape.
Yeah. And I agree. I agree under the caveat if the family is okay with it, and I that to me. So, because here's where I draw the line. All right, if we're talking about a situation where there's not going to be charges against the officer, all right, so there's no criminal case of any kind against anybody taking place right now, okay? So now we're just talking about whatever action took place. There has been the death of someone involved in a police officer shooting. There's been a death of these folks' family member. To me, I defer to them. If they don't want that to be released, now, if there's going to be legal action, you're going to claim legal action. Then I think that the whole thing ought to be put out there. But if you're not, and this is just going to be the end of it, and you don't want the video out there, and you don't want people splashing your loved one on whatever being gunned down by a police officer, rightly or wrongly, I would defer to the family on it.
Well, I understand that, and I do think that, and even reasonable to say that we should be sensitive to the feelings of the family. But I'm just going to be blunt, and maybe this is going to sound ugly, and if so, I'm sorry, but this is my honest feeling. At this particular juncture, the shooting of this young man is about more than just the family. It's about society. It's about the ongoing relationship that police departments have, or this police department in particular, has with that community. And I think if they want us, and I'm speaking as though I'm a part of that community, even though I'm not, but I feel like these police shootings sort of radiate out, especially the shootings of young black men, because it's happened far too doggone often. So across the country. So my feeling is if they want us to believe in them, talking about the police and the district attorney, then they need to release the tape. They need to show us that what they're saying happened actually happened. And they need to do it because, ladies and gentlemen, in case you have forgotten, police lie. They have lied. It's been documented. Walter Scott case, they lied. Other cases, they've lied. It's been documented. Even district attorneys lie. HBO did a documentary, probably now, Josh, maybe 20, 25 years ago about a guy named, I want to say his name was Ricky Green. I might be wrong there. But that documentary clearly established that the DA in that case lied. And even I think Anthony Ray Hinton here in Alabama, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly, and I may be misremembering, so forgive me if I am, but I want to say I thought he said in his story that the police and the district attorney knew that he hadn't committed the crime, but they were going to pin it on him if he didn't, or maybe I'm confusing that. So let me just forget that I brought up Anthony Hinton. Let me just stick with the Ricky Green story, which is on HBO. I think it's Ricky Green. The DA absolutely said that if he did not testify against somebody else, that they were going to pin it on him, even though they knew that he hadn't committed the crime. And from what I can gather, this is not so uncommon. So DAs will lie, some DAs will lie, some police officers will lie. Therefore, my position is, show me the tape. Yeah. Show us the tape.
Yeah.
And I sympathize with the family, but I think this is bigger. As much as I sympathize with them, and I hate what happened to Jabari Peoples, and it angers me, it saddens me. It saddens me that the Peoples family is going through what they're going through. I think that the general public, the taxpayers, the voters, have a right to see that tape and need to see it.
Yeah, and it sounds like, to be fair, it sounds like the family of Jabari Peoples would like for the tape to be released. They won't.
Good.
And
Good.
Also, it's very curious to me. I'd like to get more about this. I'd like to hear from Danny Carr, from the folks at Aaliyah, from whoever, because it says what they say on there is that what they saw was not the full video. It was not the full and complete video of the body cam footage. It was an edited version of that, and it left them with more questions. Man. His sister said that it did not appear to her that he had a gun in his right hand. But I don't know. And I'll say this. I'll say if that's the case, then you're damn right. They need to release everything here, and and because it sounds like this will move forward. I'll say this as well. So we had a shooting in Decatur, and we've had Nick Perkins on a few times, Stephen Perkins' brother, who was gunned down in his yard, and there's a police shooting there. And at some point in this, the Aaliyah body cam footage, they had the body cam footage from the Decatur officers, and that Aaliyah footage came out. And I've been hesitant to talk about this because I don't, I watched it. I watched what came out because it was first published, I think, on 1819 News. And I know the person who got that. I disagree with him politically on a lot of things. I disagree with the way that they frame a lot of things. I disagree with the way that they framed the Stephen Perkins shooting, as a matter of fact. But I don't have any doubt that what he put up, or what they were handed, or what they eventually posted, was the video that they were given out of this. Okay. And where I've been hesitant is I don't know where that ultimately came from, because I've been hesitant because what I really want to do is bash the hell out of Leah for that video, because I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have not.
It's a video that has been edited and spliced together. I mean, there's the full thing, and then there's some edits and things as well, and some highlights, and then there's some graphics that's placed into things, and some things that are zoomed in, and then there's some slow motion that's put in there. And every single edit, every single graphic, everything about it is made to paint Stephen Perkins in the worst possible light, and to paint the police officer in the most frightful, fearful manner that they could paint it. I'll give you an example. It shows Perkins exiting his house, and it's got the graphic up here, and you can see, and it highlights where you can see the light from Perkins that's attached to the handgun that Perkins allegedly had in his hand. Then it stops every time you can see that light hit the officer. And so what they're trying to point out is, here's the gun pointed at the officer. Now that's why he's fearing for his life. Not this mother is hiding behind the damn truck over here. And so when Perkins spun that way, he had the light went that way as well, to see who the hell it was that had just sprang from the darkness outside of his house. He didn't know who the hell that was. Right. And so what I'm wondering is if we've gotten a similar video, if Aaliyah did in fact put this together. And I'll tell you the reason why I am hesitant about it. Because when I called Aaliyah and asked their spokesperson, is this video that has been published, is that the true and accurate video that was given to you? That person says, I can't really speak on it, but I'm going to tell you that that's not the full video. That's not the thing that we gave them. So that's why I don't know. And I mean, I had a whole column written about this one day, man. And I had it. I mean, I was ready to go with it. And then I stopped and backed off, because I don't want, and I'll tell you number two reason why. Okay. Number two reason why is because I watched what Aaliyah did in the shooting of Greg Gunn by the Montgomery police officer. Okay. Those dudes came in there. They investigated that cop. They went by the book. They stood on the stand. They said what he said. They said what happened. They didn't paint it in any way. And it was just straight down the line. And so, I mean, maybe there's been a change in the philosophy or whatever, but those two things made me really hesitant to just dump on Aaliyah. Okay. And
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so if this is what this happened, because what I suspected might have happened in the Perkins shooting ordeal was this video came out and then it went to another entity, not 1819. I'm not saying it was 1819. Matter of fact, I'm saying it's. I know that it's not. Okay, I know that it's not them that did it.
Okay,
I think it might have gone to maybe a union of some sorts. You know what I mean? Or just an individual associated with the police department up there, and maybe that it was doctored and before it got to them.
And just to be clear, you're saying you don't believe 1819 did the editing itself. I can assume why I think you think this, but I want to hear from you explicitly. Why do you not think they did the editing?
because, as much as I disagree with them, as much as I disagree with what they have done, I do know a couple of the people who work over there. Like I said, we disagree vehemently politically a lot, and we're not, we're never going to be on the same side of a lot of things. But I simply do not believe they would set themselves up in a case like this to doctor a video. And I just, and I've had some other conversations. I don't believe that would take place. I just don't. With a personal knowledge that I have of them, and I don't think that would happen. And because because really, let's realistically think about it. The video for them would have been a sensation no matter if it was doctored or not doctored. You know what I mean? They have there's no fight for them here in this or whatever. It wouldn't matter. It really wouldn't matter. And so there's no reason for them to have done it.
Yeah. And I tend to agree with you. It certainly never even crossed my mind that they would have done that. I think it would have been a pretty serious stretch.
Yeah.
For an entity, even though they're right-wing conservatives, it would be a serious stretch for ostensibly a news entity, even if they're approaching news from a conservative point of view, to go to those lengths. That would be pretty shocking.
When I first viewed it, what I thought was this has been put together by a defense attorney. And that's what I thought. The defense attorney got this thing. He went through it and highlighted it to be played in court and show people that this is, here's the reason why he feared for his life, and he had to fire and kill Steve Perkins in his front yard after hiding behind the house and springing out like some kind of robbers in the night and ambushing a guy. And so I say all of that to say, if that's what this family of Jabari Peoples got, if that's the kind of video they got, then yeah, we got a problem here. If they're but you know what? We got a problem anyway, okay? Because even if everything they say is true, okay? Even if all that's true, and this was, we saw the video, he went in, he reached for the gun, he got the gun, the police officer shot him because he was fearing for his life after the struggle, everything, it's going to be, what the hell's taking so long? Why are we making this family go through all this? Why are we making the public go through? Why are we making the police officer go through all this? If it's a justified shooting, he was actually fearing for his life. He followed the rules and the regulations. What are we doing? Why are we doing this?
No, Josh, that's an excellent point. Why did it take so long? Why was this such a protracted process if it was that straightforward?
Yeah.
That's another reason why I think that we're being lied to. That's another reason why I think that somebody's lying.
Yeah, and you may be. And I would just love for somebody to explain it. Explain it. If there's a legitimate reason for this, then explain it. Explain what's going on, what's taking place, what was the timeline here. This thing, it was more than a month, right? A month and a half.
Yeah. I can't remember how long, but it's been a minute. Yeah.
But think about it in this context. The DA saw it today. The family saw it today. And in a matter of 2 hours, they were out saying, well, here's what the video showed. It's, what I mean? What are we doing for 6 weeks?
So the shooting happened June the 23rd.
Yeah. So
you're right. We're almost at a month and a half now.
Yeah. So it's just mind-boggling that we've just let this twist in the wind. And like I said, for both sides of this, if in fact this is what they say and the cop was completely justified in doing this and making this decision, why have we let him twist in the wind for this amount of time? Yeah,
it's not fair to anybody. I agree with you. If it was a justifiable shooting, it wasn't fair to the cop.
Yes. Yeah.
As well as the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, which again, I think somebody's lying.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And listen, I just want to say, I agree with you that we've had a lot of cases that in which cops are lying. about these things. We have, and that's the reason why I think body camera footage is so important and should be so readily available for a lot of these cases. I mean, like I said, I would defer in something like this to the family. If they don't, if they're not going to, we're just going to look, he was wrong, but we're not going to release the footage. Okay. If they come out and said that look, we didn't think he would have done this, but he did it, and it's wrong, and we're going to walk away, and we're okay. All right. Nope. Everybody, I would respect that decision. But if we have a contest of this, I mean, we saw what happened in Decatur. And let's keep in mind, in addition to those cops hiding behind that house on Stephen Perkins and jumping out and ambushing him, the Decatur Police Department lied their asses off about what happened. All right. And had to retract a whole statement that they put out about, basically they weren't going to do shit to those cops that did this. Yeah. They were going to cover this thing up and make it seem as though Steve Perkins was an angry black man coming out of his house to shoot at the tow truck driver and then threaten police officers with his gun. And that was going to be the end of this. And, luckily we had some Ring camera footage, and it didn't turn out that way. So,
yeah, that's right.
All right, let's slide out. We're going to get in the distraught, and she's so hurt, and she's faced so much backlash lately. Mallory Hagan, she's made some really, really regrettable comments. And so, she's faced a lot of backlash. And by regrettable, I mean truthful and accurate. So we're going to slide out. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. Back in a minute. All righty. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy to be joined by former beauty queen and two-time failed political candidate, Mallory Hagan, who has...
clocking in.
No,
I'm here.
No. Don't let Josh get away with that.
And who has faced a mountain of pushback and...
backlash was the word.
Backlash. I'm sorry. Backlash. A mountain of backlash that has really rocked her world over the last few days.
Tell you what, I've lost sleep.
After she said something totally sane and absolutely on point. So apparently that really upset the Trumpers in the world. Mallory, how you doing?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me. Good to see you. I think last time I talked to you was probably, 2022 when I was running to fail, I guess.
No. Right, yeah.
Maybe.
Have we been doing this thing that long?
I think it's about close.
If it wasn't this, it was an iteration of it, right?
Something. No, this was it. We haven't changed.
Okay.
David and I are still the same folks, a little older, and we now put it on video. But other than that, we're still doing the same things.
I noticed that you didn't say a little wiser.
A lot smarter back when we started.
Weren't we all before we were continually drugged down the MAGA rabbit hole?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like every day we're getting dumber.
Yeah. That is true. That is now. Look, before we get into your very controversial statements, I did want to bring up. You have a podcast. I've seen this. I've heard it. It's a good podcast. But tell everyone what this podcast is and what you do, who you do it with, and all that.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled. A friend of mine, Maggie Gelson-Burnett, and I started Pretty Furious a few months ago. So you can take that how you'd like to. We can be pretty and furious, or we're pretty furious. But we talk about all things that relate to women, progressive women. We spend a lot of time on politics, but we also talk about other things as well. We've done everything from ADHD to we've got someone who's an Enneagram specialist coming on. But we talk about headlines and what's going on in the world. And every once in a while we throw in a beauty product or two just for fun. So I'm really enjoying it so far. Thank you.
Yeah. Nice. It is. It's a very good podcast. It really, really is. Y'all do a great job. And I'm not trying to divert people over to some, to a better product.
Well, we do a different thing. So come on, you can listen to two podcasts.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
right. But I did. So the comments that you made, just to kind of recap a little bit. where we got to, because this is what we kind of wanted to talk about. It's just the overall environment that has been created, like we said just a second ago, the dumb environments that's been created by MAGA and the MAGA world, and a lot of the kind of clingers into the cult that has developed since Donald Trump's trip down the golden escalator. You said essentially this. You pointed out what is deep hypocrisy that's taking place right now. And I saw it again today with some other folks who were talking about this bill that's being pushed now to make rape and child abuse, different aspects of it, punishable by the death penalty. And these people are just outraged over what's taking place. And particularly they're leaning into this horrific story out of Bibb County, in which, I mean, we can all say, I mean, my God.
Absolutely.
And I don't,
sure.
Yeah. But you said, if you are a Trump supporter and you're watching what's taking place with what's going on with Epstein and what we know to be the case with Epstein, then shut up. You don't have a leg to stand on here. Because if you're defending this person, then you are undermining these investigations that lead to child sex abuse convictions and what would lead to this. You don't have any sort of a leg to stand on here. So was it surprising to you that people took this the way that they did?
I mean, no, nothing about MAGA at this point surprises me. I was surprised to wake up to it on, the most right-wing Breitbart wannabe Alabama news source. But I use news loosely. I think the most important thing to point out, though, before diving any further into this conversation is, first and foremost, you mentioned that I was previously Miss America, and in my time competing in that organization and since, my platform was child sexual abuse prevention and awareness. Almost every person in my family is a victim of child abuse, and specifically sexual abuse, myself included. And while that's hard to hear and hard to talk about, I think it's a very important element of the context of this video that I made and the information that was put out afterward. This idea that I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, or that I don't have the credentials to speak on this subject. Very familiar with child abuse, very familiar with what we do to victims, both when they are victims of sexual abuse and assault. And very familiar with why women, and particularly children, often do not come forward. Specifically, people who fall in the adolescence/teenage age range, which is what we're talking about when we talk about people like Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. So yeah, that's an important element of all of it. But I think it is insane to look at the situation in Bibb County and have the ability to see the hurt, the wrong, the asinine nature of those crimes and not be able to apply that same logic to the man who has been convicted, first of all, of sexual assault, and also has stated on multiple occasions that he would sleep with his own daughter. Like, it's not rocket science here.
No, it's not.
I just don't know how you can look at these two scenarios. And what I said in my video, and I'll repeat again, is the only difference here is that Donald Trump is a man who did it with money and in nicer places.
Yeah. And that,
You're like, where do you go from there? Because
no.
Where do you go from there? Yeah.
Well, I'm not. It's just such a. Yeah, I think, and this is the other reason I wanted to get you on, because I thought this kind of typifies the disconnect from reality that we have experienced so often under Donald Trump, where simultaneous to holding Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and other people to these traditional standards of politicians. We have a whole group of people have simultaneously given Donald Trump this pass on all sorts of things. Just the outright lying, the conflicts of interest, the self-enrichment of his family. I mean, my God, we talked about Hunter Biden for months, while at the same time this dude's little loser kids were over here raking in money left and right. And nobody, I don't understand what's taking place with this what is happening to people? I don't understand.
I mean, I know you know this, but every bit of this points to cult-like behavior. We have people who have fallen prey to the leader of a cult. And, I do think the Epstein files, even though I'm not sure who conducted the polling that said about 47% of his followers would still continue to follow him, even if it came out that he was a part of the Epstein files, which is crazy. But good to know, I guess, the other half
Right.
might not. I do think that there are some cracks starting to show. And this might be the topic that pushes, if not a majority of his base over the edge, might be the topic that pushes the other Republicans who should have been standing up to him this entire time. This might be the thing that they finally go, okay, we were along for the ride for the escalator to power, but I can't stand next to a man who has knowingly had sex with / assaulted people under the age of 18, children under the age of 18.
Mallory, I've watched you through the years as you've campaigned and how you've conducted yourself, and you've been, despite Josh's teasing of you, and I know that was all, just playful tongue-in-cheek.
I was just quoting the headline.
Yeah,
that's all I was
okay.
doing. I was just quoting the headline.
But, I've watched you, and I have to say, I don't think I realized that you were a child sexual abuse survivor. I don't remember knowing that. And so I really was literally sitting here kind of stunned when you said that. But I want to commend you for the obvious growth and development that you have done, because you're so self-composed and you've been so, I think, intentionally industrious and successful in what I've seen of you, from running for political office to, achieving a great deal of success, with your pageant work. And I just want to ask you, because there are so many, I know, and I have met through the years, so many women and some men who are survivors of child sexual abuse. I want to know what your process has been to cope with this and to not let it define your life.
Well, it's been a long road. I think the thing about me that might be a little different from some other folks who experience child abuse is that I didn't realize I had experienced the abuse actually until I was traveling the country as Miss America. So during that year, I worked with the National Children's Alliance and the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, plus Prevent Child Abuse America, Child Abuse Prevention Program. I worked with all these different organizations, and I was telling the story that prevention is possible because I was telling the story that my parents prevented it from happening to me by having these conversations, by breaking the cycle. And the more I learned, the more, trainings I sat in on, the more I spoke about the subject, the more that piece of my brain started to unlock. And I was like, wait, I actually don't think that the cycle stopped with me. I did experience this. And I experienced it in a peer-to-peer manner, which a lot of people don't often talk about. A lot of people think child sexual abuse, someone older, an uncle or a dad or a brother, and that was not the case for me. It was a peer. And so that was also confusing. So I think the thing that I really had to spend some time in therapy working through and getting over was how that manifested for me in my late teens and early 20s. Risky behavior, drinking a lot, all the kind of things that typically happen to someone who's experienced this level of trauma, how they cope with it. And so I spent a lot of time in therapy really thinking through the concept of shame. And to me, that would be the thing that I try my best to talk to other survivors about, and also to try and impart on people who don't understand why victims potentially of people like Epstein and Trump don't come forward. There's a tremendous amount of shame that people hold on to because they don't understand what happened to them or how they could have let it happen to themselves. So to me, it's been tackling that shame and understanding that I'm not at fault and victims are not at fault and that we deserve to be happy.
So, when I was a child, Mallory and Josh, my father actually would not allow me to even go to the bathroom at church by myself until I think I was maybe 12. And I always thought that he was just being ridiculously overly protective until I got older and began to realize some of the things that happen, even at church. And I know of situations.
Especially at church.
Yes. Churches, you're right. Church can be a haven for child sexual predators. And I know of at least one or two situations where I think church, if it wasn't the actual place where the the horrible incident occurred, it was certainly the conduit that connected the people that caused it to happen. And so I guess my final question for you is, what do you suggest to parents and even to young people who are able to understand and grasp the concept? I don't know how, I don't really know where that starts, but I'm going to defer to you as someone who's studied this as well as survived it. What do you say to young people, and what do you say to parents to try to prevent this horrible thing from happening?
Well, first of all, I don't think that there's anything you can do as a parent to be too overprotective when it comes to the scenario of what can become child sexual abuse. People who are predators know exactly how to groom children. They play a long game. They will take months, sometimes years, to make sure a child feels safe with them in order to make that first move. So to me, one of the most important things parents can do is, as young as a child can name a body part, they need to know the correct name for their body part. And in addition to that, they need to know that that body part belongs to them, and even mom and dad should ask permission and be mindful of their physical boundaries. And then on top of that, I'm sure you've heard this, but it bears repeating. Children don't have to give people hugs. They don't have to give people kisses. Children have an intuition just like we do. They have a gut feeling. And if none of that, they are just people whose emotions and thoughts deserve to be honored. So when a little kid says, no, thank you, to a kiss or a hug, then we should honor that instead of forcing them to participate in actions like that. Because when we do, what we're teaching them is that somebody older or bigger has authority over them and their body, and that can lead to them not speaking up when something is not right. And you can see how that would spiral into other scenarios. So to me, that's the most important thing parents can do, especially from a young age. And I think your dad had the right instincts. As a parent, I personally will not let my children engage in overnight activities or sleepovers, and that's going to be hard for them to understand. But I have seen too much. So I think sometimes just really sticking to that gun as a parent, if you can, is going to be important.
Just before Josh jumps back in, I want to affirm something you said that I think is easily dismissed or overlooked, and that is children should not be coerced into giving affection to other people. Yeah. If they don't want to do it, they should be allowed, that should be respected and allowed. Whether it's because of some intuition of theirs or if they're just being a shy, kid, or temperamental for some reason that, is not about, some sixth sense they may have. That should just be respected. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. Even in our family, my parents, who are grandparents, will say, would you rather me give you a hug or a high five? And sometimes it's a hug. And sometimes it's a high five. Sometimes it's a dab, whatever it is in that moment. So I think just giving children the agency, even if they're children that you're very familiar with, to make those choices is important.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah, and it is tough from time to time. It's because especially with really older folks, the old the grandmas and the great aunts and those folks or whatever, come here, give me a hug, and and it's just if they don't want to, they it's like, hey, she didn't want to today, and it can be a little awkward at times. I mean, I don't care. I've made everybody in my family angry anyways, so part of being
no stranger to
part of
being the one to cause a little kerfuffle.
That's right. That's right. It's if you go in with and insult them for their stupid MAGA hats, you're already off on the right foot. So not having.
Do you have MAGA hats in your family, Josh?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I don't really interact with a lot of them anymore, but yeah, there's some.
I gotta give a shout out to the Hagan Moore clan. We don't have a single MAGA hat.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say,
which is in Alabama, so rare.
It is.
Bravo.
I will say in the immediate family, like my parents, my brother, his wife, All of us, when we get together in the immediate family, we've done enough work in that we don't have any problems. It's all basically can you believe these idiots conversation during
Yeah.
but yeah, once you get outside of that boundary, then for the most part we just don't even discuss it anymore, because it'll end up in some sort of a fight. And it's just I find it awkward. I find it so awkward, this whole thing, now with that. Like we were at the beach, and we spend the month of July basically working from the beach. My wife and I, we both work from home, so we go down there. We go. My folks are down, and my daughter and her little cousin can run around and play or whatever. Anyways, we're at a condo unit down at this place, and there's some folks down from us, and really, really nice people. It's got a MAGA hat on. He's got the red hat. And so I feel like it's like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm,
where you're like, can't do it.
He's so endlessly nice. And I get it. He's gotten sucked in by the pro-America, we're going to restore, whatever. And it's just, he's just bought into the hype and stuff. And he never really thought about some of the other stuff. And it's just, I don't even know what to say to him anymore. I was going to ask you before we let you go and you go outside and play with the kids, that you've been in Alabama politics for a while. Now, you've seen this transformation, and we've always been somewhat ignorant. And we have. Let's be honest. We've always been, there's been a level of ignorance here that has permeated most of Alabama politics for a good long while. But it has become sharper, I would say, over the last several years, 2016 being the starting point, I would say, for a lot of it. You also have this dynamic in this state now, I believe, and I hear it a lot, from a certain number of Republicans, and I would say it's a growing number and pretty significant number of them, who are looking for a way to put an end to this, that are looking for a way to say, all right, we've got to stop some of the craziness that's taking place and get us back on a pathway to, and especially their party, because I think their party's in trouble with the leadership that they have elected, and I think they're leading them down a path. Do you think that I am wrong about that? Do you think that that there is hope out there for folks who are, center left and far left out, that somewhere this pendulum might swing back their way a bit?
I wish I was hopeful, but I am not. I think we all know that the Republicans have been playing a long game for some time now. Everything that we're experiencing right now is by design. And whether there are some people who might be outliers in Alabama who don't love the direction of their party, they don't have the balls to stand up and do something different. And until more conservative people say this is not the way, what we're doing is not the way, I fear that we're on a path that's going to take quite a bit of time for us as progressives and Democrats to dig our way out of. But not without trying.
No, sure,
Right.
sure. And
Right.
but you know what? I think part of that, and this is specifically kind of what I wanted to get your thoughts about, was because you've been in the campaign. You've run a couple of campaigns now in this state. And what troubles me is I know that there are very wealthy Democrats in this state. There are very wealthy, nonpartisan people in this state who would support Democratic causes or support sane candidates. Why is there such reluctance for those people to give at the same level as we see the funding roll in for the idiots and the idiotic causes? Why do they have so much money and we can't match that, even though we have people possibly with more money? Why are we not supporting the cause?
I think because we haven't demonstrated, most specifically in Alabama, that we have the right mechanisms for people to win. I think we have had candidates who were viable. I think about people like, Walt Maddox and Heather Milam and honestly me. Like, we've had some folks who have run really good campaigns. They've been candidates that have been worthy of support. They have put together the right mechanisms. But until, as a state, we demonstrate that we've got some winning machinery, it makes it really difficult to give at that level. And I said this many times when I was running. The concept of the chicken and the egg, especially for Democrats here, is really difficult. People will say, show me that you can raise money and then I'll give you money. And you're like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But it does kind of become understandable, and the more I've been a part of it, the more I kind of get it, right? Just because you sign up and put your name on the ballot doesn't mean that you have any idea how to put together a viable team of people to help you get across the finish line. And the truth of the matter is that most people who do choose to throw their hat in the ring here, even with the best credentials and pedigree, probably aren't going to get across the finish line. And we have to message to people, and especially Democratic donors, that supporting people, even when they're not going to win, is an important part of the long game. Because what we need is for other people to see, first of all, we have Democrats here and they're on the ballot, and they were supported in the process. So the next time somebody steps up to run, we build on that momentum versus everyone having to start at zero every time.
Yeah, it's just it's just frustrating, and especially being kind of on the other side of it and seeing the the support for just idiotic media endeavors on the right. That's just I mean the funding is so astronomical, and the willingness to give from these people on the far right is just it's mind-boggling to me that they're dumping this amount of money into these things.
Well, I also think.
And what you also was going to say, Mallory, to piggyback, what you just said, I think is so important. You got to lay the foundation, and there's never going to be a change if we continue to be in this cycle that you just described.
Yeah, one thing so in my day job, I'm the national press secretary for the Seneca Project, and we're a messaging and content creation mechanism in order to do what needs to be done to message outside of candidates. And one thing we talk about a lot when we're talking with donors is there are no off years. And I think one thing that Republicans do really well is they keep going, right? And to me, Democrats kind of take their ball and go home for a little while, cool off, and then they come back. And by the time they've come back, Republicans have gained 10 feet.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece of it is like there's no such thing as off years. There's no such thing as an off day. 26 started the day after the November election. And if you weren't looking at it from that perspective, you're already behind.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's we got shit to do, and it's just, we enjoy life, and we don't have anybody with their, we don't have a flag in the front yard with some dude's face on it. And, and it's.
Or a lapel pin, apparently. Did you hear about the Congress people wearing Trump's face on their lapel? That's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, one more sign that we're headed that way.
False idols.
That's right. Well, listen. I hope that this will help stem some of the backlash that you've been facing, and then you can finally get some sleep at night.
I just don't know how I'll manage.
Well, thank you for coming on and for what you've done, and hopefully this is maybe a decent message will get out amidst all of the other idiocy that has taken place, and so we really do appreciate you doing it.
We all are doing the Lord's work. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
All righty. Thank you. That's Mallory Hagan. Hey, we're going to slide out. We're going to come back in just a minute and wrap this thing up. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a minute. All righty. Welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person. And you'll notice throughout our interviews and the first segment and everything, we were all dressed the same. So nobody changed clothes this week. Yeah. Our thanks to Mallory Hagan for coming on and spending a few minutes. Yeah, it's always, man, she's a really good talker.
She is, man.
She is. She should be elected office. She thinks things through. She is, can articulate everything out.
And I'd love to see her in office.
It's a shame that we live in such a state sometimes. But thanks to her. Thanks to the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment for all they do for us. Thanks to the folks at SPLC. Matter of fact, we are in the process of trying to get their new CEO on here, or interim CEO, talk about how things are after Margaret left, and see where that stands and how everybody's doing. And thanks for y'all for listening. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a review at some point, we would really appreciate that. We're doing fine. So, listen, go on there and tell everybody that we're fantastic. We really would appreciate that wherever you get this thing from that allows you to leave reviews. All right, to kind of wrap this thing up a little bit here, there was one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think there was one thing you wanted, but before we get to the right wing nut. And the one thing I wanted to bring up is we had this whole deal this week where it goes school. Actually, school started back last week for my little one, which we took a philosophical stand against her starting school on July 31st. I will not send a child to school in July. That's just the way I am. All right. They've already taken August from me. You're not getting July. You're not getting it. All right. You can pry it from my cold, dead hands. You're not getting it. Okay. All right. That's just not happening. I think they ought to pass a law that says you can't go back until after Labor Day. That's just me. Okay. That is where I stand on this. That is when we went back, and we're not that much dumber than the kids today. Okay. So I think it would work fine.
It does seem weird that kids are going to school the first part of August. That does seem strange.
Yeah. Dude, it's all the breaks. Okay. It's all the breaks, the random ass breaks in the middle of the school year. The fall break, the random Wednesday off here, and the random Fridays and Mondays, and the 2 weeks or the week long at Thanksgiving, and the extra week in the spring, and the extra days here and the extra day there. And I mean, my God.
I know this is not really what we're supposed to be talking about,
No.
but I do have to ask you, as a parent with a child in school, I mean, some of those breaks you appreciate, right? Like the Thanksgiving, the week long Thanksgiving. Don't you kind of like that? Oh, you don't like that?
No, I don't like that at all. It's
a Wednesday to Sunday deal. Does that be it?
Yeah, that would be preferable to me. I'll say,
Okay.
listen, we are not the parents of, I can't stand our kids home. What am I going to do with these kids? Or the ones that are just so joyful about them going back. We actually like spending time with our little. She's very enjoyable to be around. We like her being at home with us and stuff. So that's not the issue. The issue is that it's so much easier to do this in the summer when it's all one block of time. Okay. Like whenever you have this, you can set up camps. She goes to these different camps. She has all these different activities that she does or whatever. And there's things to do. When it's a random Friday and, my wife and I are both working, or a random Wednesday and we're both working, or what, you know what I'm saying? There's not, or the week of Thanksgiving, we're both working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So she doesn't have anything to do with her. There's no camp to go to. There's nothing for her to, she's just, sitting around the house, or especially in the winter when it's cold as hell, and and you don't want to go outside. So it just creates these situations where you're like searching for things to entertain your kids with, or not. And then you feel like a loser because you let your kids sit on the couch and watch TV all day long or whatever. I mean, really, you know what I'm saying?
I got you. I got you.
You talk about, well, they go outside and play. Well, they're not in the winter. They might in the summer. They might get up a good little wiffle ball game or something in the summertime, but they're not going out when it's 12. And so it just, I don't understand it. I don't understand why we do that. I know the teachers like the breaks. I know that they want to do this, and I ultimately know that some of it has to do with this theory of learning loss taking place the longer they're out of school in the summer. I would like to see some evidence of that. I don't think anybody can show me evidence of that. There's a challenge for you. I don't think you can show me evidence that there is greater learning loss. If they stayed out another 3 weeks, that there would be a great amount of learning loss on that. Okay. Now, if you want to tell me, well, we need to get them back in school because that's where a lot of them get their food from. That's where they get fed. They get a regular meal. They get all that. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Although I would say to you that what the hell have they been doing for the last 2 months?
Very true.
What have they been doing the last 2 months? We not figured out a system where we can feed them for those 2 months?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
I don't know. Listen, man. Listen. I work this rant out all the time. I could go on this rant forever, okay? Because I've been building this one. I'm just waiting on some school official to ask me about this shit, okay? If I get Eric Mackey alone in a room one day, he will hear from me. He won't be able to get out of that room fast enough, okay? And I know it's not ultimately his fault, but still, it's just it just drives me insane. So
touch the nerve.
It does. It does. And this touched the nerve. As we started back, all the school systems around we were in Limestone County, and so Limestone County sent out this thing talking about the Focus Act and how they're implementing the new rules and regulations related to the Focus Act. And if you're unfamiliar, the Focus Act makes it illegal, I guess illegal, or against the rules for students to have cell phones or smart devices, including smartwatches, in classrooms with them. If they have one with them, it has to be turned off and placed in their locker and stored away. So they're stowed away. So they cannot have it on them. And this went out along with the punishments for this, which are pretty steep. You can, second offense is 3 days of in-school suspension, or 5 days, 3 to 5 days of in-school suspension. Third offense is 15 days in the alternative school. And that's just for having it. I mean, it's that literally if you had it in your pocket. Yeah, if you just have it in, not even you're using it, if it's just in your pocket. So yeah, I mean, and people were like, whoa. There were, I think, 2 points of outrage, because the parents were really, there were some parents who were really pissed about this. And their 2 points of outrage were, first, the punishments, which seemed overly harsh. And second was the fact that they included things like smartwatches in there, because we send our daughter to school with a smartwatch on every day, which allows her the limited ability to contact us should she need to, and also for us to track her where she is. Not that we think anything's going to happen, but
yeah.
You know what?
Understandable.
And here's the other rant that I've been going on. Oh man, when this thing came out, I had a nice little beach rant with my wife, and I said, you can't tell me, all right, because the argument is, and you heard it from Kay Ivey and from the lawmakers and from people all around, who said, well, we didn't have these things in the classroom when we were growing up, so we don't need them now. They're just distractions. You know what else you didn't have when we were growing up? You didn't have active shooter drills. You didn't have bulletproof backpacks. We didn't have safe rooms and shit. Okay? That's right. So you can't tell me that I've got to adjust to all that, and then you fall back on this horseshit line of, well, we didn't have them when we were, and everything was fine. All right? This is a different, if you want to tell me it's a different world, and we've got to cope with this different world, and I've got to, on the days after school shootings, watch that little backpack bounce down the sidewalk away from the car, then I think we ought to be able to put on them whatever the hell we want to put on them. All right? Now, that said, I also think the local schools and the teachers and the principals and whoever should be able to come up with rules about when they should be, and if they are being abused, they should be able to take them. They should hold the folks accountable for that. The kids should get into trouble for that. All that. I am not for there being any disruptions, and I can certainly see how there is and have been disruptions out of these things. But what bothered me more than anything was the surprise of so many parents about this, because this shit wasn't hidden. Nobody hid this from them. The Focus Act was one of the major things that all the politicians talked about, because this was appeasing to the old school people that loved to tell you about how things were in their day and how it was so much better. And so they were proud of this. They talked about it all the time, about what they were going to do, abandoning the smartphones and doing all this. And legitimately, I believe 70% or more of the parents had no idea that this was happening. None. They had never heard of it before.
Yeah.
I mean, way more than this. It's a problem that if you're that disconnected.
So let me ask you again. I've been out of the school-age child game for 15 years or close to 15 years. Are there not still parent-teacher organizations or something? Because wouldn't that have been a conduit for that kind of information to be relayed?
I would think so. However, I don't know that the parent-teacher, because my wife is heavily involved in that, and I help out, whenever needed, or whenever they need a truck to haul shit. I'm there to do whatever. I don't, typically they don't get into those sorts of things. They get into, to be fair to them, it's mostly things like, well, we need X for, the classrooms. So-and-so, we need some new playground equipment. We're having a problem with the curriculum in this way. We got to schedule this. We don't like the way this is scheduled. That, it's such a localized, specific to the school type organization. You know what I mean? While I know the pushback on that would be, well, this is pretty specific to the school, I get it. But I don't know that would necessarily be something that they focused on a lot. But even still, the participation there in most schools is not what you would think it would be, even in the good schools.
So I guess what I'm wondering then is, and again, I've been out of this so long, maybe my memory's just bad. I don't know. It sounds like you're saying the only way that people would really know is through media coverage, through news media coverage. And if that's the case, I guess because of the way the news media business has changed, along with the fact that maybe a lot of people are just disengaged from it now.
Yes.
They just missed out on that.
Yeah, I think the disengagement is exactly the right problem here. I think that so many people rely on social media to get their news. They rely on Facebook. They rely on whatever other, some Instagram or whatever, and word of mouth from various people. And so often that is heavily focused on national issues, slanted towards national issues. That's the reason why way more people were concerned about the transgender athletes, of which there are 10 in the entire country, and not on this thing that ultimately affects them every single day, that they're now outraged about. And they've tuned themselves out of the process. And I think that is first of all, it's a recipe that the politicians love because it lets them do whatever the hell they want to do. And secondly, it's a recipe for disaster for you because you continue to get screwed by things. And it seems like it's like a self-fulfilling thing where I'm not paying attention to that because they're all just going to screw me. And then they screw them and they're like, see, they screwed me, when the time for stopping this would have been earlier on, when there was, you could have the outrage at the proper time to tell people, wait a minute, you don't know. We don't want to ban smartwatches and things like that. We want them to be a process for this that allows them to have these things so we can keep up with them, or whatever goes into this. And so, but now and it's not just this issue. I use this issue to demonstrate it, but there's other issues as well out there. I mean, that people are just completely disengaged in on a local level that, the majority of people have no idea who their state rep is, who their state senator is, who their local councilmen are, who their local county commissioners are. I mean, we had a thing in our neighborhood not long back where we had some potholes, and there was a whole long discussion about who they needed to call, who needs to do this, and finally some people figured it out. But it was pretty clear that the majority of people had no idea how to go about that, who would be responsible, why, what the process was, or that they were even entitled to. They were going to some of the folks were going to contact the folks who developed the neighborhood, the subdivision, and try to get them to pave it, And I was like, but listen, I am by no means trying to say that I'm some smart fella here, okay?
I got you.
Or that I'm better because I pay attention to some of this stuff or anything else. All I'm trying to say is you're getting screwed because you're not. And I'm probably talking to the wrong group of people who are currently listening to a political podcast, but still, tell some other people that you're getting screwed, okay? Share it around. Let them know that they're getting hosed out of this. Well, was there something else you wanted to bring up before we got to our...
I just thought it was notable that our former U.S. Senator and Attorney General for Alabama, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General for the United States, Jeff Sessions, was subpoenaed in this House investigation into the Epstein situation. Apparently they feel like they're not trying to suggest that he was involved in some nefarious way, but just that he may have some knowledge about what was going on during the time period that he was Attorney General when decisions were being made about how to proceed with that case related to Epstein and Maxwell woman and so forth. I think it's notable.
Interesting to me that we're not calling we're calling Jeff Sessions, but we're not calling some of the victims. We're still not talking to the victims who everybody knows, and everybody has had, even if you don't know their names, they're certainly out there. And I'm not saying that we need to drag these people in, of course, but if there were some opportunities to reach out to them, to talk to them, to have them give testimony willingly, then I think that would be a pretty good way to go. I think that, that's just, I think you see that where the subpoenas and everything are going. They subpoenaed the Clintons. And it's just. I don't care. I mean, subpoena the hell out of the Clintons. Subpoena the Obamas.
Yeah, I have no
subpoena
problem with
all
it.
the Democrats. Anybody you want to subpoena, I don't care.
Yeah.
But subpoena everybody.
Mhm.
And release the documents. Put the whole full thing out there, and let's get to the bottom of who's in it, who's not in it.
Yeah.
And let's stop this nonsense about, we were going to release all these files and get to this thing. And, I want to know why this guy got such a sweetheart deal in 2018 or whenever it was down in Florida when the prosecuting attorney down there was going to let him off with a deal that violated the Victims' Rights Act. I want to know why all this happened. I want to know who was behind it all. And I do not care if it's a Democrat. It doesn't bother me at all.
I don't care either,
I ain't
man.
married to
I don't
any of
care
these
either.
people, man.
Yeah. In fact, I'm gonna go on record and just say, quite frankly, I suspect that Bill Clinton has something to hide related to all this. And
I don't doubt it at all either, man.
I don't hesitate to say that. I mean, I don't know it obviously, but based on the reporting that I've read, I think that he and I just don't believe. I don't care if you're talking about Bill Clinton or Donald Trump. I do not believe that people who had a close personal relationship with that man, who were involved with his life, in his inner life, with parties and trips to the island or wherever else they were going and stuff they were doing. I don't believe they didn't know what his predilection was as it relates to young girls. And I find it hard to believe that if you are a person, I don't care what your political persuasion is, if you're a person of halfway decent character, how in the world could you call somebody like that a friend, and could you be in regular social contact with that person?
Well,
I don't buy it.
Yeah,
I don't buy it.
I don't either. I don't buy it from, and you're right. There's two people who I think have something to worry about in this. One of them was Bill Clinton, and the other one is the guy currently in the White House.
Yeah,
I think that both of them, and I think there's some others out there, lesser known people, wealthy, lesser known people. I think that there are some who are out there that are going to have some trouble if this ever comes out and ever sees the light of day. But I mean, when we narrow it down to these two guys, I mean, you look at their histories. I mean, you look at what they've done. You look at how they behaved over the course of their lives. I mean, who in their right mind doesn't think that Donald Trump was involved in this? I mean, really?
Man, look.
I mean, come on.
What the old folks used to say, I think makes a lot of sense. Birds of a feather flock together.
I mean, look at the way he has behaved around those girls at the pageants, the way he has behaved. I mean, just go back and watch his old videos of him at award shows, on talk shows, on Howard Stern. I mean,
what he said about his own daughter,
yeah,
Josh. What he said about his own
dude,
daughter.
I don't. Look at all the pictures and videos that you have of this guy around these people and the way that he talked about. There was a video the other day that I watched of him talking about how he had hired this girl because of her looks. And that's why he liked to get them young. And this is the way he thought. This is the way he was doing these things. Okay.
He is the nasty old uncle that everybody knows to stay away from in a family. That's who he is. That's what I think.
And has been forever. And he used to take gleeful pride in being that person. He was, it's not like he hid it. I don't know, man. It just, this whole thing is, it's really exposed a lot of people and their hypocrisy on, as Mallory talked about rightfully, it's really exposed their hypocrisy.
Yep.
When it comes to child abuse and child sexual abuse specifically. It's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing for a lot of y'all. I mean, come on, man. Shit together.
Yeah.
All right. Right wing nut is RFK Jr.
What this time? What did he do this time?
Well, he's now announced that they're pulling $500 million. Is it $500 million or $500 billion? Maybe $500 billion.
No, I think it's $500 million.
Is it $500
It's $500 million.
Okay. Yeah. From the development of mRNA vaccines.
Yes.
It's something that most doctors and scientists believe. First of all, the mRNA vaccine is what we all used during COVID. That was the COVID vaccine. That was the basis for it. And I'm not smart enough to tell you what the mRNA stuff does, how it alters things, why it works. We're gonna try to get Michael Sack. He's been on this show a few times back during COVID as a doctor back at UAB, and really one of the top doctors in the world, instrumental in developing the AIDS vaccine. And so we're going to get him on because he talked about mRNA and how it was just a revolutionary front for science, and how they were starting to explore this more and more, and what all it could be unlocked through this, and the diseases and things that we could cure, and the pathway to better living and better health that these things could present for us in the future. And I would really like to know, because all the reporting that I have seen from all the doctors and scientists from around the world say, what are you talking about? Because RFK
Right.
has come out and said, these things are a danger. They're this is not something we should be funding. These things we're messing around with stuff that's going to cause harm to people. And, and what gets me more than anything is this idea, because they also say, remember what happened during the pandemic. Those were mRNA vaccines as well. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I mean, I understand that there were a handful of adverse effects that originated from the vaccines, okay? Which is typical of most vaccines. Some people have an adverse reaction to those things. But at the same time, those vaccines were extraordinarily effective in allowing us to return back to a normal life, and really reducing the death rates, almost eliminating the potential for death once you contracted the virus. I almost think that there were people who were living in a different world at this time during those years.
Yeah. Well, and I think the political language and of that we've been experiencing over the past, well, for sure 5 years, maybe 10 to 15, has caused some people to forget certain things and to rewrite certain things and to doubt certain things. And that's part of it too. But clearly, as you said, we would not have survived COVID and all of what happened without those vaccines. We just wouldn't have. Now, again, that's not to say that some people may not have had adverse reactions to them.
Of course.
Suffer some consequences. I mean, we even talked with our friend, State Representative Anthony Daniels, and he even suggested that he might have been made more vulnerable during his recent health scare because of the vaccine. He said they don't know, but it's certainly on the table. So, we're not saying that the vaccine was a perfect solution, but I think what we're saying is that for the vast majority of people, it was the difference between sickness and health, or maybe even life and death.
Yes, it was. And I mean, it just, people talk about, well, it was only X effective. I mean, it's the same as the flu vaccine every year that people take all the time. And it's meant for, for protecting people, vulnerable people, children, the elderly, and yes, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you still get the flu, and sometimes it is only partially effective. And, those things happen like that with that. And yes, some people don't need it. I never take the flu vaccine. I never get the flu, either. And
I've never taken it.
Yeah. I mean, and so, but it's just this attack of science and this idea that all of these people are out to get you, and it's driven by pure profits and money. And I believe pharmaceutical companies are, a lot of times about profits and money. Don't get me wrong. But you're looking in the wrong places, man. The places where you're getting screwed are when they're donating to the folks over in Congress who could do something about the bills for some of these pharmaceutical drugs, and about the patents, and about the way that we make the generic versions of some of these things available. Those are where you're getting screwed, and where we're being allowed to be guinea pigs and whatnot. The other places, like this right here, where you're talking about at the ground level, where doctors and scientists are out here working and trying to solve these problems and address these diseases, and those people rely on funding they're trying to make things better. I just don't understand why we villainized them to this point, and why we've elected this scratchy mouth dipshit that's sawing the heads off of sharks and putting and swimming literally in shit, and why this is allowed. I don't understand.
Welcome back from the beach, Josh.
Thank you, man. It's good to be back. I think I might go back. All right. Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.